Nobody ever had the title King of New York before. It was never a title in hip hop culture that you could aspire to. It was given to Big.
Big was breaking so many boundaries, so many records, doing shit we never seen before.
We're not thinking about Pac at all. We're thinking about, we got a hot record.
26 years ago, we tragically lost one of the greatest music artists that ever lived. In the sphere of hip-hop, Christopher Wallace, aka the Notorious B.I.G, is revered as one of the greatest of all time writer, rapper, and songwriters. A GOAT. His final body of work was the impeccable double album, Life After Death, a succession of infectious hit records and impossibly poignant rhymes that soared from certified diamond to iconic. 2022 marked the year that Life After Death turned 25, as well as the year that our dear friend Big Poppa would have been 50 years old. I'm Angie Martinez, the voice of New York, and I spent 5 consecutive nights speaking with those who were closest to Biggie during the final 18 months of his life, in and out of the studio. The result is an 8-episode visual podcast fit for a king. For your visible and audio pleasure, welcome to season 1 of Iconic Records. For the Notorious B.I.G, 1995 was quite the year. Not only was the MC preparing to crush the sophomore jinx with his second album, he was in full campaign mode for rap's King of New York title. Initially endorsed by the July cover of the #1 hip-hop magazine in the 1990s, The Source, Big led the race with the year's hottest street record being his controversial Who Shot Ya. In the premiere episode of Iconic Records, we talked to Who Shot Ya's producer and former hitman Nasheem Merrick. Junior Mafia member Klepto gives us a never-before-told story about which rapper the song was actually aimed at. Rap royalty Fat Joe even joins us to speak on his brotherhood with B.I.G. But first, legendary hip-hop journalist Bones Malone reflects on writing that historic cover for The Source 27 years ago and being a dice roll away from signing Big himself before Puff. Bones Malone. Yeah, I haven't seen you in about 2 decades.
You look great.
You look the same. Thanks, man. You do too. You look the same. I feel like you held up good.
Yeah. I always said that we found the fountain of youth early, you know?
Maybe you could just tell me about the first time you met Big.
Big.
Do you remember the first? You do. Of course you do. How could you not?
Well, you know, being at the Source magazine, I came from Spin. So I was experiencing magazine while I was still at RIAA and Def Jam. I'm doing the biographies for Def Jam, but you know, my magazine start was at Spin. When John and Dave of The Source, when they were going public, they wanted to take the magazine national, they contacted me and said, please come with us. You know, we know who you are. This will be all hip hop culture. It'll be people your age. You know, this is one of a kind. And I believed them and I came. And through there, I was able to get, through Unsigned Hype, you know, shout out to Maddie C and John Sheck, I was able to hear his demo.
Was it the black tape?
Yeah.
My tape was black, I don't know. I had a little black tape.
I don't know what mine
tape.
was. I think it said TDK in the side, but I knew right away. Like everybody knew right away. But, you know, the interesting thing is when I was listening to it, there were references in it that were made talking about Frank White, the black Frank White, and I knew right away what that was. You know, there's only one movie in the culture that we cling to, and you know, that's King of New York, so I knew right away, you know, where he was going with it, but he didn't say it. And he didn't have to, you know, it's about, the artistry is about being subliminal and, you know, picking up, and that's what makes it even more dope, that you don't have to say it, but you know who we are. So you know, they gave me the the honor to write the cover for Big. And the name of it was King of New York. You know, that was the actual name of the article. They felt that it was so dope, and it was. Especially with Chimo Du's, shout out to Chimo Du forever. Chimo Du's picture, that iconic picture with Big, you know, just, he didn't have the sweater, but he had, you know, with the Twin Towers, just put it on the cover, and that was it. But it was because he had those references in, you know, in the demo already.
It's easy for us to say King of New York now, right?
Yeah.
Because it's obvious, right? But in that moment where he's coming off of, what, Unsigned Hype, like, to call him or to have it King of New York, was that a big deal? Like, tell me about the climate of even that title, why it was just understood so early, like, who made that decision? Was there conflict with it?
That's a great question because it's answered in the actual article.
Yeah.
So if anybody has that
original?
issue, read it again. It took me, after writing it, it took, I think, at least 10 years to read it again.
Why?
Because it was so far into the future. When you open it, and you're reading it, you'll see that the title of the album is in the interview, in his answers. Life After Death is in the interview, in his answers. The reason why he's the King of New York is in his answers. And all I had to do was ask the questions, and to answer it, the reason, well, I gave him the title because I just explained it was obvious through what, you know, his references were in the songs. But what cemented it was that he dropped, I think on, it was what, Friday the 13th? And that he sold 250,000 albums in New York alone. That did it. Nobody ever did that before. Nobody. Nobody ever had the title King of New York before. It was never a title in hip hop culture that you could aspire to. It was given to Big. But the thing is that he earned it after it was given to him the night he dropped. Brooklyn's energy spread to Queens, to the Bronx, Staten Island. That doesn't happen. There's only certain artists that has happened to, Wu-Tang included, Joe, you know, Buster. There's very few people that ever get that, you know, Big Pun. And Big had it. And I gotta give credit to Puff too, because, you know, although I had an opportunity to sign Big, and I lost him in the dice game.
Yeah, I'm gonna need that. You're not gonna. I've heard the story, but I need a detailed version of this story. The never heard before details of that.
Well, I was at Island Records, and out of the Mind Squad, the Source Mind Squad, I was the first one to do A&R. And I had Mobb Deep. I got Mobb Deep through Unsigned Hype, and I'm trying to do well by them. And, you know, what do I know about signing an act? But all I knew was that they were dope, and I really wanted them, and I think that they earned a shot. They deserved it. So Matty comes over with Big. You know, we come to after work, yo, we gonna smoke something, and we're gonna roll some dice. And I was like, okay, it's after work, and he comes over, and then it was Big's idea. While we're up there, we're talking about music, Big had something else on his mind, so we're rolling. He said, we're gonna roll for a deal, and oh my goodness. He just timed it just right. I'm all intoxicated. He wants to roll for a deal. I said, good Lord, this is it. And, you know.
Wait, so Big said, give me the words. I need the
words.
The verbiage.
Say, yo, I'll play you for a record deal. Say, you know, if I win, you sign me. You know, I had to go along with it. It's like, bet. I can't pull back on something like that because, you know, one thing I understood about Big, you know, even before, but especially at that moment, Big is a player. He always says that in his songs, true player, a true player. For anybody who knows from the South what that is, you know, that's when you raising bread at that moment. You know, he's a gambler. and he's gambling his life right now. It's like, are you with it? So I'm like, yeah, I'm with it. Even if I'm reluctant.
He wanted to sign with you.
Yeah, he wanted to sign with me. You know, because we were neighbors. I lived around the corner from him. He's on St. James, and I'm on Green and Gates. Me and Maddie was in the same
You
same
didn't
building.
want to sign him, or you just couldn't at the time?
I felt like I couldn't. You know, I felt like I couldn't because I didn't make good with what I already had, you know, with my responsibility. I didn't want to double down and then if anything collapsed, oh, he sucks, you know what I mean? And I really respect him, his livelihood, his mom's, you know, it's so much riding on this. It's not just my reputation, you know, I gotta treat it with the respect that it deserves. But at the same time, I can't be no punk. You know, Angie, we gotta roll. Let's roll.
Of course, it's a challenge.
So we start rolling for 3 hours. We rolling dice for 3 hours. And, you know, snap on my finger. He's throwing threes. I'm throwing ones. Then he's throwing fours. And then I'm throwing fives. And we're just going back and forth. And I'm snapping so hard, my finger splits and there's blood on the dice. I'm bleeding on the dice. The guy won't let up. He's still throwing bricks. I'm like, oh my God. And I remember the last roll, Big threw a 5. It was 2 1s and a 5. And I used to carry the big club dice so we could see the number. That's a 5. You know, my man threw a brick. I'm like, good Lord. So now I'm sweating. I'm like, oh man, here you go. And I shook the dice and then rolled out and it was a 6. And he went to bad boy.
Tell me your first impression or your first thoughts when you first heard Life After Death.
It was over.
What does that mean?
You know, I already saw what King in New York and the first album did. When I saw that picture of a hearse, this dude, oh man, you dressed like the Undertaker? The balls of this guy. Life after death. I really had to sit down, like, you know, like after the fact to think about how I felt about it. But once I saw it, I was like, oh, the first thing. Everybody was like, this guy is serious.
That's even before you hear anything.
This is before you hear it. You just look at it, oh, yo, give me that. You don't even care what's on it. Yo, just give me that.
Yeah.
Let me get that.
Then you hear it.
Then you hear it. He's even better this time. And it's a spooky, like there's spooky songs on there. I mean, Downfall is spooky as hell. Long Kiss is spooky. It's like, all right, it's dope, but it's creepy. It's creepy because I love the dude and, you know, I'm worried. You know what I mean?
Your concerns.
It's like I'm a parent now, you know, some hip hop parent, I'm worried.
Well, what did you even make about Big's, I don't want to say obsession with death, but I mean, his first album was like Ready to Die. Then it was Life After Death. Do you think that there was some type of connection to that?
I don't think that he had a death wish, but in the hood, when you become recognized, even famous, getting murdered is a great story. It's just the way that it is. You know, I've said over and over that the only people who get killed in my neighborhood are the ones who already know they're gonna die. And the reason for that is because they crossed the line somewhere. And instead of leaving, they stayed. They get hit. He only did 2 albums. Ready to Die, Life After Death. So he had reserved in himself to, this is who I am. You know, I'm gonna gamble my life on a record deal. I want that so bad. I'm gonna gamble my life. And with that, I'm gonna play this all the way to the end. You know, I'm never gonna stop. You're gonna have to kill me.
Wow. Leave it to Bones to keep it 100. So in 1995, Christopher Wallace was certainly committed to becoming Frank White. And few people had a better seat to watch his ashy to classy transition than another New York giant, who also happened to book Big's first paid show. There he is!
Yo, Ange, what's up?
The greatest storyteller in the game
That's what they say.
has arrived.
Stay sitting, stay sitting.
There's no way we could do this without you, Joey.
Please do not feed animal. That's what they say.
That's pretty good.
Thank you so
No,
much.
we have to for so many reasons, because number one, I know how much you love Big. And just because it's a different perspective of, number one, you as an artist, you being around in that time, hustling the same time, launching Pun, and just your relationship. So there's so much that we gonna get from you today, which I'm excited about. Do you remember hearing him for the first time?
Yeah, I heard him partying bullshit for the first time. I knew he was nice. Did I know that Big was gonna, I knew because Lord Finesse was working on his first album, and Finesse would tell me, yo, this kid Big from Brooklyn, he gonna be something else. But did we know when we didn't know till those things came out? And when them things came out, the next thing you know, we went to every party that was ever popping in New York City, and y'all notice they would have 100 guys outside with picket signs.
The Bad Boy.
With Bad Boy and Big and Craig Mack, and we never seen no shit like this.
No, it's crazy.
Everybody felt like they was in a movie, Vote for Big. You know, he do party and bull, and they start a riot on stage, and then they come, like these guys, like they was not playing.
It's so interesting in retrospect to look at Big's career, and sure, anybody could say, you know, he's the king of New York. Of course, that sounds like that's like obviously, but when you're living it in the moment, and he's like fighting for that position, and it's in real time.
I don't think he fought. I think Biggie's climb to success was so fast. You know, I was cool with Big. I gave him his first show at the Fever when he was partying bull. I had Flojo out already, and I was promoting shows on the side. So I picked him up and everything in Brooklyn. That's my man. I used to go see him in Brooklyn. One of my famous stories is one night I was chilling with him in Brooklyn. I had the army fatigue, Fat Joe. He had a hockey jersey on. I was chilling in his house, and he was like, yo, you gotta come to the show tonight. And he gave me some tickets. I think it was the Palladium. That night I went to the show. He had a salmon suit on with gaiters. I was like, oh my God, he's gonna be a star. Like, I was like, I was just with this guy minutes before. And so, before we blink, he was number 1, 2, and 3. And he was like, yo, Brooklyn, we did it, Brooklyn. Like, that shit was so fast. And it's so crazy because I'm in the crowd at the Palladium, and there's this iconic picture I think Jonathan Mannion took a picture of. And every mansion I ever go to, the picture's up on their wall, and it's
Big in the salmon
But
suit.
I was in the crowd. Like, you know, Flojo was in the crowd, and every time I see that picture, I could just remember the stage moving and where I was in the club.
Isn't it crazy because you were taking me to a moment. So my 25th birthday party was at the Palladium, and Big walked in. And so what was that year, like 96?
Was you just celebrating your birthday, or we knew it was your birthday?
No, it was the Angie Martinez
And he showed
25th
up.
birthday. This is what I'm saying. And he was in the prime of, you know, he was big. But, and I'm talking about Jay-Z was there, Mobb Deep was there. It was all these people there. But when Big walked into that room, it was like the C's party. It was
I'll tell you a story.
Everybody was like, and I remember that moment thinking, there's like this is the king of New York has just stepped into my birthday party. You know, there was no questioning his position in the culture. You know what I'm saying?
Goosebumps when you explain that. I got goosebumps.
I know you were at the club. You were in the crowd. You weren't in the photo at that time. You wasn't. But have you seen him was that the first time you'd seen him at a party or a club?
What I was explaining was that Biggie's my man from day one. I met him at the Lyricist Lounge when I was giving out vinyl for Flojo. Flojo was already popping. And so I seen him battling a bunch of kids. Same Puff Daddy just broke, jumping up and down, talking this shit, this, that. And so I met Big, and Big was like, yo, Flojo, we became cool. And so at that time, when you put out records, you didn't really make money like now. And so I needed a side hustle. So I would throw parties at the Fever. So I hired Big to come perform there. But I knew from
What
jump.
did you pay him? Do you remember?
I did, but I don't want to talk about that.
Was it terrible?
It was like $1,000, you know what I'm saying? But that was like big, you know what I'm saying? And so it was the first show we ever did. And so we did that. And then we just remained brothers forever, man. And the thing about him is that he never changed. And it's so hard for people not to change. And so people be saying, you change, but the truth is, their perception of you change. And I remember I pulled up to a Vibe magazine party. And when I was walking up, I had just dropped my second album. When I was walking up, it was like 500 people around this truck. And as I got closer, I noticed it was Big standing on the thing. And for 1 second, I became that person. For that 1 second, I said, nah, that done change. You know what I'm saying? And he happened to see me right when I was about to walk away. He was like, yo, Crack, come here.
And you were
B.
like, you didn't change.
I was like, he didn't change. And I walked up to him and he had Little Kim with him, and he was like, yo, tell Joe what we've been pumping all week. And it was my second album, Jealous Ones in Me. And then Kim was like, we've been pumping Jealous Ones, it's dope. He was like, you got nice, bro. You been done, you know, I was like, wow, you know. But it taught me, you know, God taught me an early lesson how people don't have to change. It could be your perception of them, you know what I'm saying?
Who do you think Big's like was there competition or was just like undisputed King of New York? It's easy to say that now, but I'm just thinking at the time.
At the time, there was Wu-Tang. At the time, there was Nas. Jay was just like, still just a baby, just coming in the game. We didn't know how great he was yet. Big was breaking so many boundaries, so many records, doing shit we never seen before. I didn't see nobody wearing no salmon suit with no salmon gaiters, with a f***ing hat to match, with the fur 3/4 going down. You know, nah, come on.
Spitting like he spit.
What? Her Poppa freaks all the honeys. Everybody was like, oh my God. So everybody else, best way to describe it is always comes an MC at a time where everybody got to sharpen their sword and get with the program or you're gonna get left behind because the whole sound is moving. You know, so basically if Puffy ain't produce your or your remix at that time, if you ain't have a big verse on an R&B feature, right? If you, it's hard to explain the chokehold. They might have ran 80, 90% of anything moving on the radio in America.
I remember.
They were doing it like that.
Yeah.
Like your shit wasn't a Puff remix featuring B.I.G. Your shit wasn't moving nowhere.
So tell me about Madison Square Garden with Big and Pac.
Man, I was in the front row watching Big Daddy Kane do his set. And all of a sudden you see the whole crowd turn back, like looking at the entrance, like the tunnel from, you know, like in the Knick game, you come through the tunnel and it was Pac and Big, and this was like Juice Pac. And Pac knew how to walk in with that little ditty bop, and the whole crowd's like, ah, like couldn't believe it was Pac and Big. And so while they was walking, they see me. Right? So Pac is like, yo, come on, Crack, come on. So I go with them, right? And so we go back up there, we go up on stage. I think Shaheem was there too from Wu-Tang, Shaheem the Rugged Chap. We went up stage and then they start that cypher that. I got Tech Mac 11s, about 838s, 99s. You wanna talk about standing next to somebody? I was on stage with Biggie and Pac.
What were you doing when they were doing that?
Nervous as because all I had was flow, Joe. I ain't had no bars ready, nothing. Big Daddy Kane might have saved me because I would have did some. And they passed me the mic, yo, Fat Joe. And then Big Daddy Kane interrupts and goes, yo, we ain't got no time. Because I think Scrap Lover rhymes. Man, they dissed me. It's okay, Big Daddy Kane, I love you.
They saved you is what they did.
They saved me, man, they saved me. But that record is another record. Every time he comes on, I tell a story to whoever I'm next to. I be like, I was there. I was standing right next to these guys. You gotta believe me. I was there. I was to the right of these guys. And And that's I think that's the one time they caught them both rapping together. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah. That's legendary moment.
What? And then, you know, I always told Nori this story. And then one day Nori interviewed Big Daddy Kane on Drink Champs, and Nori asked him, like, yo, what's up? You fronted on? He's like, yeah, I fronted on Fat Joe.
You saved Fat Joe.
And he saved Fat Joe, because I would have came with some ticky-ticky-taw, ticky-ticky-taw, you know. That was that time.
Was that a real freestyle, or did they plan that?
Oh, no, that's a free. They just came off the street. And the crowd went in the frenzy, and Big Daddy Kane was headlining. And he only had a couple of more minutes left. And so they threw on the beat, and they started going. And they started free. To all my in the pen, here we go again. Ain't nothing separating us from a Mac 10. All that. I was there. I was standing right there, innocent bystander.
Wow.
Yeah, that was legendary.
Legendary. What is your favorite song on this album?
I really don't even know what's my favorite B.I.G., but I would say Who Shot Ya? You know, I remember when that record came out, I had a sound system, I had a truck. My speakers in the back were so big, and I was just...
Of course they were.
And I was driving. You know how you had to open the back window? And I was driving around the Bronx for hours, blasting, who shot you? Separate the wheat from the ox. It's on. Go like crippling beef. I could hear sweat, and I'm driving down the X like, oh my God.
Okay, so now that you understand where Biggie's status ranked in the mid-90s, it's time we dive into the prelude of Life After Death. And that one song that had him leading the King of New York race, Who Shot Ya? Nasheem, welcome. Welcome, boo. How
What's
are you,
up,
love?
Edge?
Good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Welcome to our
Yeah, I see.
world of B.I.G. here.
Wow.
Well, what was the vibe and the atmosphere being that bad boy at that time and the expectations for what Big was about to be?
We already knew what Big was going to be. Like, we didn't know it was going to be that big.
Right.
But we knew he was the ace in the hole. You know, Craig came out first with Flavor Your Ear, and that
Rang off.
that went monster,
Yeah.
right? But that was a napalm we put on him. But we knew who was destined to carry us through. You know, especially after we did Ready to Die, Forget About It. We already knew like that was the illest album ever.
Yeah. When was the first time you were in the studio with him?
Well, the first time, like I said, was that night, but the first time we actually came down and recorded a session in Manhattan, we was doing the Method Man and Him joint. And we did the interlude with when he's having sex on the couch or you know, and then we did that interlude that night also. So it was a funny night that night.
How does that happen? What goes down then? How do you create that?
It was people rocking the bed and, you know, on the mic just having a ball.
Was that his idea?
Of course.
Yeah. Everything was Big's idea.
Mainly.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of it was Puff too. You know, like Big didn't want to do. He didn't want to do certain songs like Big Poppa. He didn't like that record. Juicy. He didn't like that record, and he didn't want to do them records. So, but Puff knew he needed singles, and those were them. So Big Poppa was the last song we did. In fact, me and Chucky had did the beat for Big Poppa, the Isley Brothers joint, and we had gave it, Puff has told us to give it to the Lost Boys because Big didn't want it. He refused to do it.
Wow.
But I had to get it back from him. So we traded them. We had another beat that Craig didn't want to do, and that was the Jeeps, the Beamers, and the Benz beat. So I traded him that beat to the Lost Boys for Big Poppa back. And that's how them two songs became.
Wow. What was the Lost Boys gonna do with the Big Poppa beat?
I don't know. I thought the same thing.
Did you have a favorite song on Life After Death?
I can't say.
Why?
I don't have a favorite. I mean, there's a lot of tracks on there that's just, even Primo kicking the door, 10 Crack Commandments. And I did Who Shot Ya? That beat wasn't even for Big.
Who was it for?
That was for Mary's My Life album.
What?
It was for an interlude on Mary's My Life album for Keith Murray. Puff loved Keith. It was for Keith Murray. Keith came to the session, he did his thing, and then he's like, yo, I gotta go. I was like, where you going? I don't know, but I gotta go. I was like, all right, Keith. I can't hold you here, you know what I'm saying? Who am I to hold you here? So Puff was like, listen, he brought LL in on it. And I don't know what happened with that.
Did LL spit a verse on it?
He wrote, I seen him writing, but I don't know what happened after that. I mean, I was there with them for a little while, but then I split, and I don't know what happened with that. Then Puff comes to me and say, yo, go find your man Big and get him on this record if you want this track on the record. Because it was a weekend, it was a Friday, and we had to turn it in on Monday. And he was like, yo, I think he's outside the Club USA. That it was on 7th Avenue at the time. And I got him, I had a rental, a hoopty rental, and I rode around the block a few times and I seen him. I was like, yo, come to the studio, please, Big. I gotta get this record done for Mary. He was like, yeah, I heard it's hot. I was like, yeah, the beat is all right, man. So he comes in and he bodies it that night. But he says at the end of the verse, he says, I leave you leaking like Michael Jordan's pops. That's when Michael Jordan's pops just got killed. I was like, yo, Big, you can't leave that on there. It's not gonna make the album. It's not. He was like, I'm leaving it. I think he did that on purpose. So it didn't make the album. So Puff had no choice. He was like, we gotta make it a single, because it's too hot just to, put on the shelf. So Big changed the verse for his single, added a verse, and that's how that became that.
That was crazy, that song. And then when it hit, do you remember when the streets heard it?
Yeah.
Tell me that moment.
Once the streets heard it, I mean, I was like, yeah. That's the first record I ever produced. And
wow. I mean,
I was like, God.
Out the gate? Who shot ya?
Out the gate. Who shot ya?
Ooh.
And I was like, yeah.
You have arrived.
I've arrived.
Yeah.
And then it took a whole nother turn once Pac heard it. We're not thinking about Pac at the time. Bad timing on our part, right? But we're not thinking about Pac at all. We're thinking about, we got a hot record. And Pac hears it, and of course, that situation, that Unique, had just happened. So he takes it personal. Even the shots, pow, 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 pow. I put them in. We did that way before he got shot. And Pac ran with that. And Pac even knew that wasn't for him, because Nichols, his road manager, went to Pac on the island and told him Puff and them had nothing to do with it. You know what I'm saying? Don't take that whatever personal. They had nothing to do with that. Pac was like, well, I already did the Vibe interview. So there's no taking it back. You know what I'm saying? I already did the Vibe interview. He said what he said. But then that record becomes a battle record. It wasn't even a battle record. Big wasn't speaking to nobody on that. Mm-hmm. So you can't choose between Who Shot Ya and Hit 'Em Up, because then
the objective was different.
Thank you.
Yeah, got it. Biggie came on my show actually and said that. It had just dropped and he came up. He was like, nah, he told me. And he said, you know, we recorded that way before that happened.
Way before, October 1st.
Yeah.
We recorded that October 1st of '94.
Yeah.
I have the DAT, and that's the date on the DAT.
I remember Big coming up to my show and saying and making it his a point to make sure everybody knew he recorded the song early, and me feeling like, whew, well that's settled. I thought everything was gonna be okay
Nah,
from there.
see, Pac is way more intelligent than that, and he used that as a chess move.
Nasheem wasn't the only one in the recording studio the night Big laid his Who Shot Ya verse. Junior Mafia's Kleptomaniac has a hell of a story to share. Klepto meeting Big.
Wow. The full story?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'll blow through it. So Big, yeah, I met Big. I actually met Big in the tunnel. And the tunnel was...
the legendary tunnel.
Yeah, it was actually the Grammys after party. I used to try to get on with rap. So I wanted to be a rapper, of course, like everybody, every kid in New York. So I was looking at the Grammys on TV, and I see all these different people, and I'm like, you know what? Let me go to this after party. So I go with my boys, and we meet. I had just bought a new car. So I was probably, 17, 18 maybe? We get in the tunnel. I'm wondering who I'm gonna rap to. I don't know anybody really in the game. I knew Special Ed. I went to school with him and Busta Rhymes. We were both in the same 4th grade class. By the way, yeah. We both go way back. But we all go way back, I should say. But I'm sitting on the other side of the bar looking around. I see Brand Nubians, I see Wu-Tang, I see different people. And I look at the doorway, I see Biggie Smalls, because that's what everybody called him back then. Biggie just had Party and Bull and What's the 411, but you still knew he was that dude. Yeah. Like,
but it's pre-ready to die.
Yeah. Like, if you're a rapper, you know, like, this dude right here, he that dude. And I walk up to him, I say, yo, what up? Yo, what up, Big? You know my man June. I say, yo, my name is Klep. I'm the nicest nigga that ain't out. To this day, and I say this multiple times, he looked at me, he looked me up and down, so I'm DKing wide out, jewelry, Tag Heuer watch, like all of that was super fly back then. He said, yo, I believe you. So, and then shook my hand, or it might have been a pound, like, he was like, yo, I believe you. So, in the midst of him saying, I believe you, the club was over. So they all like, yo, he either shouted to C's, because I didn't know who C's was, because I didn't know C's then. So he was like, yo, let's get a taxi. I'm like, yo, I got a car. I could drive y'all. Like, where y'all going? He said, oh, you got a ride? I said, yeah, I got a ride. He said, all right, go get it. So now I'm like, all right, perfect. In my mind, perfect. So I just bought a brand new Q45. Like, it was hot.
I'm just wondering how a 17, 18-year-old kid got, but go ahead, carry on.
So I got the Q45, no tints, jet black, brand new. So I go in the car, drive up the block, and when I pull up to the front of the tunnel, Big is standing out there with C's, Bones Malone, and Cheek Del Vec. And when they looked and saw the car I had, it was like fireworks went off. Like, I seen it in their face, like, oh, that's what he driving? So I pull up to the front, Big gets in, and people still coming out and all really hanging around. He sits in the front seat. C's got in the back, Bones, Cheek Del Vec, and we just posted up in front of the tunnel. So now, about 5 minutes later, all my boys come out the club. So they come out and they look and see Big sitting in my front seat in the car, in front of the tunnel. So after that, he took us to Chelsea Diner, which is still open, of course, yeah.
Classic.
Yeah. So we went to Chelsea Diner. After that, we got back in my car, and I didn't have any beats back then, like instrumentals, so I rhymed off of Souls of Mischief, Never No More, just because I liked that beat. So I actually rapped all the lyrics I had over another rapper's song while they were rapping.
Right.
And I rapped everything to them that I had. So after that, me and Big just started hanging out heavy. Like, we'll go everywhere. Like, we'll go to Queensbridge, pick up Nas, and then I'm not gonna lie, the Q45 helped. So
You had a good ride?
Yeah. The timing was perfect because he was forming Junior Mafia, and then I was heavy in the streets, and he loved, like, I'd pick him up, and we'd go place. He'll take me to stuff like industry-wise that was super dope, and I'll be in the hood. I lived on Ocean Avenue. I had him in the barbershop there, so dudes is bugging like, yo, baby, yo, Terrence Sport, Biggie around, yo, yeah, Biggie Smalls on the block, like that. In the interim, me and him, we just got super cool because we were everywhere. Like, we'd shoot all over the place.
Were you there for some of the sessions of Life After Death?
I was there for the Notorious Thugs when they were mixing that down. Like, that was like hypnotic. Like, I couldn't believe it to walk in, because I tell people when I walked in that session, it was crazy because the beat is already so phenomenal, but to hear it broken into the granular pieces of that beat, separate and then slowly building on top of the rest of the beat, it was crazy.
It was a different flow for Big, too.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Big is like that, and to speak about how genius he is, he rapped their style like it was his style.
Yeah.
Like, nobody could deny that. He came in like, yo, this is my style. Like, I've been doing this. Like, that's how much he could adjust. And people talk about now, and a lot of people ask, if Biggie was alive, what do you think he would be doing? And that question just triggered something. Big is the type of guy, he feeds off the energy of what other artists are doing, and he feels like, okay, I gotta top that. He's almost like, for real, like a Jordan or something.
Were you there when he did the verse? Or
No, I wasn't
when they
there.
were mixing
I
it. Was
wasn't
Big
there.
there when they were mixing it down?
Yeah.
Or
He
you were
was
with
there.
Big?
Yeah. Big was there.
yeah.
Yeah, Big was there. I went there to see him.
What about Who Shot Ya?
Yeah, Who Shot Ya? Yeah, there was a lot going on. Everybody thought like, oh, Biggie made that. Biggie made that for Tupac, which wasn't the case. But there's layers to that story, so I gotta give you like the whole build up. So the night he did Who Shot Ya, we were at Jason's lyric after party. So it was me and him. We went to the after party. We were chilling, and I never forget that day, because I'm not gonna blow it up, but I'm gonna blow it up. I almost bagged Jada Pinkett in that party that day. No, I'm gonna blow it up, but back to Biggie. So now we back to the party, and that whole night, it was raining, pouring rain, but Puff wanted me to come to the studio. So I'm like, yo, why don't we just go to the studio and listen to the beat? We go to the studio, and it's Puff, the engineer, LL Cool J, me and Big. That's it. That's who's in the studio. So it gotta be maybe like 3-something in the morning, maybe-ish. So we get in the studio, and Puff bring us in and plays the beat. And me and Big just look at each other like, we gave each other that look like, oh. So on top of us giving each other that look like, oh, Keith Murray's verse comes in, because Keith Murray was originally on it for Mary's album. So we heard Keith Murray, check this, met this bubonic plague in your neck, chest, back, arms, and legs. So me and Big just started like, oh. I was tired, I was drunk, I fell asleep for about maybe an hour. So I woke up when he finished creating the verse. We sitting in the main console room with Puff and everybody, and Big is in there laying the verse. So it's me, Puff, LL, and the engineer. So Big start laying the verse, and soon as I hear old school, new school, need to learn, no, I burn, baby, burn like disco inferno. Burn something in my mind said, I kind of look over at L, but not really look over at L. People never knew why LL made I Shot Ya. It was from that day when Biggie made Who Shot Ya.
So wait a minute.
Yes, let's wait a minute.
So LL was in the, what was LL doing there, first
I don't
of all?
know.
So you believe LL took offense?
I'm sure he did, because you felt it in the room while it happened. Like, it's like...
What was happening in the room? What was the energy?
It's like, oh, oh, Like you want to look at like, oh, shit, what you gonna do now? Like it was that kind of feel. But and then me and Big, we laughed about it. Like, damn, son, why you came at him like that? And you just laughed. Like if we had one of those moments, me and Big, because we used to bug out. But one thing I could say that it made me respect being down with Big more is I was like, Ellen come right back at him. But if you think about it, he did I Shot Ya, but people wouldn't put two and two together.
Definitely not.
People wouldn't put, but if you think about it, who shot you? I shot you. Who shot you? I shot you. Do the math. And then if we go back after listening to this, why would you make a song called I Shot Ya after somebody just made a song asking the question, who shot you?
So we finished Sky's the Limit, and at the end of the session, he goes, this is my favorite record. Yo, as far as I'm concerned, I quit.
By that time, Puff is like, no, I need the same suit as him. Puff's, and then Big was like, don't tell him I'm getting double-breasted. Like, we're not gonna look like Kid and Play. You know what I'm saying?
And so he was like, yo, what up? Yo, what up? Yo, what up? Yo, what up? Yo, it's 112. For real.